Welcome, everybody, to Club and Country After the Whistle here on Major League Soccer, your U.S. men's national team post-game show. We come at you after every single game to break down tactics, whatever else happens. It is your show, and
to just sigh, to just take a deep breath.
Guys, this one is a celebratory one, but everyone, just relax for a moment. We are off from the ledge. I am David Goss, your host. I'm joined by Matt Doyle, who will sleep for the first time in 2 months after this result. Arielle Castillo of Major League Soccer is with us as well. Also breathing. So currently 2 members breathing. Andrew Wiebe, are you breathing as well?
I've been breathing, man. I was breathing before this, but it was ragged. It was just coming in fits.
You were playing it pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, no, but it was the pit in the stomach. It was the what if. It was the maybe. It was what have we been doing for the last 3 years if this doesn't come off?
Yeah,
it
totally.
was that feeling.
From 3 p.m.
If you hadn't noticed, the U.S. national team finally gets it done. They get the big win against Panama at home. This was the one where we said, if you don't do it now, there really is no tomorrow. Only 1 game left in qualifying. The U.S. moves into 3rd place. Sole possession of 3rd place. If they win on Tuesday night, they lock it up. If they draw, they still got a good chance. And it happened early. We talked about the U.S. getting an early goal. Matt Doyle, no one could have seen this coming, but Christian Pulisic, the run out of midfield, scores the goal.
We talked about this last time against Panama in the first qualifier. The only time that we were dangerous in that game was when Pulisic got through the line, when he was able to get isolated on those Panamanian central defenders and just beat them for pace, and that's how we got the first goal. As long as we were going to be able to do that, we were going to be good. And then, of course, he did some stuff when he drifted out to the flanks as well. Great run from Josie.
What I love here is that everyone knows what he's going to do. Once he misses this touch here, he's waiting for opportunities, waiting for runs. And then I'm wondering what Felipe Beloy is doing here.
This is a hard run to track from Josie because he goes in and then out. It's a Wando run.
Beloy's reading of that play is completely off. This was not a good performance from Panama, top to bottom. Hernan Gomez blew them up in the presser, and for good reason. And it's mistakes like this. This can't happen when a win gives you a spot in the World Cup. And it can't happen when you have a chance to make history.
And again, that was Beloy getting dragged out of the middle and having to defend on the flanks, and he got turned like a
And tip of the cap for the acting from Mr. Bobby Wood. Not saying it was a dive, but he definitely sold that penalty.
Come on, Panenka, can we just,
Yeah, 3-0 going into halftime. The U.S. national team finally can breathe. Bobby Wood gets one done himself. But there were surprises coming into this one from lineups and everything else. Let's talk about the joy for a second. U.S. national team finally gets it done. The Honduras game was fun a few months ago, but this, I think, the best U.S. game we've seen in years.
It's funny, manning the Hot-Take Hotline, you can send your texts and voicemails, but this is actually one of the few nights when everyone's really happy.
I know. it's been like...
It's off-putting, actually.
It's usually really angsty in here. 41201 is...
206.
206,
Zero MLS, right there.
Usually very angsty, but actually, here's just a sample. Jason from Topeka says, I'm much happier person now than I was 2 hours ago. Yeah. And I have to say, as we were saying the whole day, I just felt a sense of creeping dread from like 3 p.m. Just get it done, rip off the Band-Aid.
We were sitting here before the game, and someone said, when can we celebrate? And you said, if they're up 2-0 in 10 minutes, then we can have a little party.
They got to
2-0
in 18 and 19 minutes.
So that was the start this team needed. Offensively, 2 forwards up top, Bobby Wood and Josie. Pulisic gets that space, scores that goal. This game huge in terms of goal scoring as well, because goal differential was a big part of the conversation coming into this one. Let's look at the standings right now. The U.S. national team, as I said, moving into 3rd place. Panama sitting on 10. Honduras and Costa Rica will play tomorrow due to the game being moved because of a tropical storm. Trinidad and Tobago and Mexico playing right now. But you look at it and you see the U.S. controls their own destiny.
And that game against Honduras, that 6-0 win, we've talked about it being a huge result because it provides a gap for them in that term. You don't see goal differential here. The U.S. and Panama were separated by a goal coming into this game. Now it's 7. They completely changed the scene. They completely changed what they have to do in Trinidad and Tobago by stomping on them. By getting the first goal, getting the second goal, and then rolling. And Bruce said it at halftime. Could have been 5-6-0. This game could have been 6-7-0 U.S. And Panama had chances too. Let's not discount
They did. I think you have to give a lot of credit to Bruce Arena here, which I know a lot of the fan base is loath to do. But he took usually in Bruce's career when he takes risks, he goes conservative. And that whether it was the draw at Mexico when he busted out that 5-4-1 back in the summer, or if you want to go back 15 years ago against Mexico, going with the 5-3-2 or 3-5-2, that was a conservative move from Bruce Arena. He took a risk in this one that was going more aggressive, that was going all-out attack. That 4-1-3-2 left the central midfield open. The U.S. could have gotten overrun like they did against Costa Rica, but instead, it just coaxed Panama out of their shell. Panama is an ultra-defensive team. They had given up 5 goals going into this game. They gave up 4 tonight, and it's because Bruce convinced them to play his game. You got to give him credit. He did a great job.
401-206-0MLS. This is your show. Ask us questions. Give us your comments. Let's go to a call right now about Sir Bruce Arena.
Hey, club and countrymen. Dustin Rogers here from North Carolina. Tonight was the perfect matchup all over the field, so congrats to the coaching tonight. Yedlin's defensive speed matched up and shut down the speed of Torres. Omar and Beasler's strength shut down Perez. And the midfield, which I think was their biggest reason for the late poor performances, just controlled the tempo of the game and let us play the game that we wanted to play. Then what can you say about the forwards? Just great performance. Go USA.
Yeah, I mean, I think going into it, I was actually pretty scared of Gabby Torres and Blas Perez. Looking at that, I was like, that's it, you know, RIP, our defense. So I have to agree, obviously, Bruce is the coach for a reason, and that's why he's on the field. So I'm pleased, and I also think it's a relief to see DeAndre Yedlin back in particular.
I think it's that sort of like domino that really sets up the rest of it. And then it was easy decisions for Bruce. He went with guys that he knew were comfortable together. This is not a game to go out there and say new partnership.
Wait,
it's interesting though.
But no, Beasler and Omar, I don't know, was the obvious partnership. I think every person had Jeff Cameron.
Well, actually, you know,
but every person had Jeff Cameron.
I'm saying he went with the guys he knew understood each other in a way that didn't need to be set up. You didn't have a partnership that had any holes. These guys have played together in big situations. They come in and do it again, and they complement each other.
I think Beasler and Gonzalez have only played like 4 times together, but I mean, before this in big situations.
3 of them were like this summer.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a level of familiarity.
But Jeff Cameron and Omar played together.
Remember, Cameron is just coming off a hamstring injury, and he played 90 minutes 5 days ago. So I assume they felt like, all right, we don't want to start someone who we're going to have to sub off after 60 minutes.
Yeah, but this was the game that you had to win, right, coming into it?
I agree. And like I said, I would have done a lot of things differently if I was Bruce. I wouldn't have taken the super attacking risk. I thought we were going to see a 4-2-3-1 or a 3-5-2.
I mean, let's be honest. When that lineup came out, none of us were sitting here saying, attaboy Bruce, good stuff. It's going to be all good.
I thought they were lying to us.
Yeah, I tweeted that I was displeased by it. Because
to be fair, I don't think any lineup ever has come out where, you know, all of North American soccer.
But like we've gotten killed on second balls in central midfield over the last couple of months, which led to our losses. So I was surprised Bruce did what he did. I was not surprised when he tightened it up in the second half by bringing Dax McCarty on, another ball winner there, and you saw it like. That is like the platonic ideal of a Bruce Arena game. To shut it down, to get the lead and then shut it down like that. Is
and
how
Dax
he's always
McCarty was
to coach.
so happy to do that job.
In his hometown.
And run around in his hometown, about 10 miles from where he grew up. Let's go back to the Hot Take Hotline for your questions.
Hey, this is Vikas from Boston. So the U.S. has looked best in the Hex in this 4-1-3-2. Which is definitely not sustainable defensively, so I'm wondering what you guys think we're going to do in the World Cup. You know, if we're playing like in Germany, do we go 4-2-3-1? Do we sacrifice Wood or Josie? Do we move to 3-5-2?
I just wanted to check the time to see how quickly we were...
Stick with it and see what happens.
I just want to make sure we knew how quickly after this whole we're happy and things are
good. October 2017. We got a ways to go to the World Cup.
It's been about an hour and a half since things went well, and now we're already looking at it.
Yeah.
Hey,
now we're looking at Germany, the Brazils.
Right, but let's talk about this because I don't disagree that they gave up some really good looks in that first half. Yeah. 2 or 3 really good looks against a Panama team that we said has only given up 5 but isn't a high goal-scoring team. Blas Perez, not in his prime. Gabby Torres, we watched him play for Colorado for a couple of years. So this maybe isn't something where we learned a lot for the future.
This lineup was a gambit. It really was, and you hit it on the nail on the head. If they don't score that goal 8 minutes in, I don't think this game goes the same way. And Gomez has blown up his players for a reason. Down 1-0, Panama should never be coming out of their shell, should never be opening up. But once Pulisic gets him between the lines, once he introduces that little bit of doubt, because remember, Panama's riding high coming to this game. They were looking at the U.S. and saying, open for business. We can come to the U.S. We can do what Costa Rica did. We can have a party in Panama City come Tuesday night. We could go to the World Cup for the first time. And I think they got burned a little bit by maybe just a little hubris. And where that came from, I'm sure it came from a number of matchups 1-1. But without that goal, I just don't think this happens. And it was a little bit of naivety from these players who are so veteran, who've done it so many times before. I just don't get it. I don't know why the Anibal Godoys, why the Felipe Belois, why the Roman Torreses are being pulled out of position.
They lost their nerve, man.
Yeah. Just sit back. Do what you've done this entire qualification cycle. Dance with the person who got you here, which is just suffocating defense, because Pulisic's a once-in-a-lifetime talent for the U.S., in CONCACAF, in the world. And then he'll do things like this to you. And all of a sudden, this is what I'm talking about with Felipe Belois. First of all, you know he's going to the end line. So try to get in front of him, at least get tighter to him. But Felipe Belois, he knows who's lurking behind him. Jozy Altidore is, and this is not some incredible run that throws Belois off. Where's that step? What's he stepping to?
He's stepping towards Bobby Wood.
Okay, fine.
Back to your point.
But there's no angle to Bobby Wood.
But Gabby Gomez lets Bobby Wood just waltz into the box.
There's no angle, and that's where Felipe Belois, the veteran, should read the game a little bit better.
I think you're doing Jozy a little bit dirty. That's a nice run.
That's
a nice run.
It's a
and it's not a run he used to make. Jozy used to just drift to the penalty spot.
Would always float.
Always float. So to make it, that's a striker's run. It was nice to see him do that.
So the guy who set it all up.
Yeah.
Christian Pulisic. It is the coronation. He's already president. Landon Donovan's already elected him. He's already the greatest soccer player in the history of the world.
60 minutes.
National team. Yeah, 60 minutes
did
it as well.
To back it up.
Yeah. How big a performance do you walk away from this for him?
Well, obviously there's not enough praise, but I do want to bring it back to something that a lot of people are talking about and that I was thinking about. Obviously, we saw basically he was just getting hacked away during that second half, right? So how does that affect the lineup going forward? How does that affect Trinidad? And also, should the guys have reacted differently, seeing what was happening to him out there before he got pulled out? Hans from Seattle says, I would have liked to see the U.S. stand up to some of the cheap shots from Panama and take a yellow. So
no. Did we see the list of guys who are suspended with the yellow cards?
Yeah.
No.
I mean, there were, and Bruce addressed this in the postgame. He said CONCACAF qualifying has the stupidest yellow card rules in the entire world. If you pick up 2 yellow cards at any point, not the same game, like you pick up one on the first day and one on the 9th day.
By the way, DeAndre Yedlin, this was only his second qualifier, and he's sitting on a yellow card suspension.
You can pick up first day, 9th day, you're suspended on the 10th day. So I understand our friend from Seattle wanting to see an enforcer out there, but with the way it is, you just can't do that.
Also,
and we saw it with Panama. Murillo's gone for next game. He's their best right back.
And Christian Pulisic, we saw the tattoo. He is already protected by the American flag and by the eagle, so he doesn't need the protection.
Can we
the entire thing it's like it was scripted. Like the entire time, I feel like I'm being punked. It's like we're up by that much. There's a foaming at the mouth crowd. And then that comes up. That's like I refuse to believe that's real in a way.
Yeah, you think he just had a henna put on at Disney World before he came over for the game?
In the locker room, are people looking at them being like, you went all in.
Yeah.
I feel you, man.
You think he walks into a locker room
World Cup
where Jermaine
tattoo.
Jones used to be and John Anthony Brooks has a tattoo of every state his family's ever
You're right.
been to.
Nobody's
And
even
that's
looking
what they're
twice at
looking
that thing. Yeah, that's just par for the course.
You look at this team, you look at what he did, though, and we asked the question all week. 1, how do you get the best out of him? But 2, is it too much pressure for a 19-year-old, for a team that has Jozy, has Michael Bradley? He stepped up today, but you could see the release in the goal celebration from him just there. The knee slide and just the full arms flailing. Is this an example of no, and this is Pulisic's team now, and this is the way it works from now on?
I think so. I think so. I mean, you can use him on the wing, and you could use him in certain situations where he doesn't necessarily have to be as much of a focal point. But, is there any question he's the best player on this team? He hasn't yet had as great a career as Landon or Clint, but is there any question he's the most talented player the U.S. has ever had? I don't think so.
I don't think so either. And I think what you're really looking at, what you're getting at here is, where do you make a legend as a national team player? Where do you make your name? Where do you become remembered? It's at the World Cup. So I think the entire past year, the entire next, 8 months, you have to be doing exactly what we're talking about here, which is setting the team up to make him as good as possible on the biggest stage. And I think that then makes the people around him even better. I think Josie Altidore is perfectly set up to be the guy who plays him in behind. We saw that tonight. Bobby Wood's industry, his ability to get in behind, creates room for him. Now, how do you create the rest of the team, and especially the midfield, to have the steal behind him? Because he's got to have freedom. You can't put too much responsibility on his shoulders defensively.
There's a lot of great soccer minds in this country. I think I'm sitting next to arguably the best. Let's take a look at a video that was recorded before this game started from Mr. Matt Doyle.
I understand the impetus to play Christian Pulisic out wide. It's where he spends most of his time for Borussia Dortmund after all. But the U.S. national team isn't Borussia Dortmund, and thus far in qualifying, the U.S. have been much better when Pulisic has played centrally as a number 10. Think back to the first game against Honduras, a 6-0 U.S. win that Pulisic dominated, or the second half of the qualifier against Trinidad and Tobago, or the last 20 minutes of the last qualifier, a 1-1 draw at Honduras. The common denominator, Pulisic was central. Keeping him there has given the U.S. a better structure going forward and a much better structure defensively. In the 4-4-2 with Pulisic out wide, the U.S. have been shockingly vulnerable up the gut, and an inability to win second balls in central midfield was a defining factor of the 2-0 loss against Costa Rica. So keep your fingers crossed that Bruce Arena moves Pulisic inside. Find out what he decides on Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, in the final home qualifier of the cycle against Panama.
I mean, I'm just clapping for the preacher's collar. I didn't even hear any of that. I don't even know what that was about.
I'll take lotto numbers.
Right, I'm not that good. I think any idiot could have seen that the U.S. have played better with Pulisic central. It goes back to what I said at the top of the show. His ability to burst through the lines. I think Valderrama and Diablo and Echeverri had such a profound effect on how American soccer fans view the game. We think of a number 10 as a guy who sits behind the forwards and plays guys through. There are different types of number 10s in the world game today, and Pulisic is a different type. He could hit that final ball, but he's at his best when he's breaking through the lines and making those direct runs, like the one we saw against Honduras a million times, or the one to open the scoring now. He stretches the field tonight. He stretches the field in a different kind of way, and we have to build the team around that.
I couldn't agree more.
You're overwhelmed.
I can tell. I am overwhelmed. I'm overwhelmed that we get to watch a player like this play for the U.S. national team. I mean, Landon Donovan was a magnificent player, but when he's sitting at home tweeting Pulisic for president, that kind of gives you some context. 19 years old doing this. I mean, I think that you can thank him in large part for this qualification cycle in the place where they're at. Almost, it's like 85% of the goals scored, he either scored it or he assisted it.
I think he had a hand in like 14 of the last 17 goals the U.S. has scored.
He's been the single most influential player on this team. You don't score goals, you don't go to the World Cup, and he changed this game twice. Look. Josie's run was fine, but that is on a platter. Like, that is sitting on his foot in the middle of the box with the proper pace. And curl. I love Josie Altidore.
So anti-Toronto
I love Josie Altidore. Don't get me wrong, but any of us can just make a hard run in there.
Wow. I cannot.
Okay, maybe not us. Maybe I can't do that.
I have to say I'm here for the Josie Altidore fan club, and I think he's still super underrated. The way he did it, he made it look super easy. Not everyone finishes that. Yes, it was served up really well, but that's the whole point of having those two guys.
We actually have a phone call on Mr. Josie Altidore.
I hope it's a good one.
I hope it's from Andrew's brother saying, "Oh my God, in the world." Let's go to that 401-206.
Andrew's brother has more sense than Andrew does.
This is Ben Bear from New York. I'm not even watching the game, but I know that people need to respect Josie for what he did tonight. Mm-hmm. I know he scored 2 goals. I wasn't watching the game. I got the formation wrong, but
he's just
we're going to be in the World Cup. That's all that matters.
Look, I wasn't trying to bag on Josie. I'm just saying that Pulisic's magic makes everybody elevated around him, and Josie elevates Pulisic. Let's not get those two things switched up. He needs somebody to run off of. Otherwise, there's no gaps to be had. And like I said before, I just think that those two complement each other in their games so well. Then it's about building. The question is, can you play 2 forwards? Going back to that formational thing, can Bobby Wood be the other guy there? And if he's not there, how does that affect the attack?
He can be it against the Panamas of the world, and I think he could be it against the Trinidad and Tobagos of the world. I do think it's an open question for next summer whether you can play Josie and Bobby Wood together with Pulisic underneath them. It would probably have to be a 3-5-2, but Bruce has used that in the World Cup before, so maybe that's what we'll get to.
Well, I want to pivot. So we're talking a lot about the offense, and I want to talk a little bit about the defense because the hot takes are coming in, and it's something that we haven't discussed so much so far. So Jason from Topeka again says,
Yes, Jason.
yeah, he says,
Kansas,
I'll run
shut
through
up.
a couple of these. He says, the defense is still sketchy. Yedlin makes me feel better. Another one, Cole from Atlanta. Did our offensive strength mask our overall defensive weaknesses? And Perry from Portland also agrees, and he says, I wish they would play like this more often. It's a good game, but we still need work in the defensive half. And one
we have
more
a hot take call
yeah.
as well.
Hey guys, it's Adam from Orlando.
What's up,
Just
Adam?
leaving the game. I think anyone who was complaining before the game about Jeff Cameron not starting looks like a buffoon. I think Omar and Matt had great games, and I think my hot take is Matt Beasler is the most underrated center back in the league. Even though people rate him, still underrated. Have a good one. Go USA.
You got Jonathan Spector in
in
your
the
own
league.
backyard, and Matt
Yeah.
Beasler's underrated?
I don't know about most underrated. For me personally, I'm happy with the defense tonight. But in the first half, like we were seeing, it got stretched out a lot, especially in those last 10 minutes.
Yep.
So there's something happening there where the urgency dropped a little bit, and
I think we were just slow to get pressure to the ball in central midfield, which has been a recurring theme when we've played that 4-4-2, whether it's been the diamond, pseudo-diamond that we used tonight, or like the flatter 4-4-2 that we used the last couple of qualifiers. That's something Bruce has to figure out. And he figured it out with a lead tonight by bringing Dax in, and suddenly Panama couldn't string anything together, and we were under no pressure. But again, to bring it back to the question, what happens against better teams? We wouldn't have gone out against Mexico and played with this formation and this lineup. We would not have left the midfield that exposed. So it's going to be a work in progress. It's one of the issues with taking over as a coach with a year left in the cycle as opposed to the whole cycle in front of you. So
there was a lot of people talking about there's a lot that needs to be proved. There's a lot that needs to be done this game. People need to step up. Josie needs to step up. We saw that. Pulisic needs to find a way to be his best self. We saw that. Another big one was, who is Michael Bradley's partner? That was a question that Bruce basically just said, I'm just going to pass that one on to the next guy.
Kick it down.
And look, I think the reason why you can't get pressure on the ball in the midfield is because Arriola and Nagbe are not tight in any way. It was completely stretched out in the midfield. I would have rather seen them route the ball wide and let Panama just whip crosses in. I don't think that they would have hurt us. In that sense, I don't think the service would have been good enough. And I think Yedlin, especially on the right flank and from a 1v1 defensive standpoint, has gone from about right here with the Sounders, where he was just run straight ahead, to he'll lock you down now.
Yeah.
He's a guy that'll get in front of you and stop the ball and turn around and go the other way. He's really improved as far as 1v1 defending. I'm still iffy on that left back position against the best teams in the world, but Jorge Villafaña did a great job tonight to keep things in front of him. Those guys were always going to be isolated. I think that was part of the game plan was, hey, you're going to have tests. You're going to have, Blas Perez nipping at your heels, kicking you, finding spots to turn and find players. You're going to have Quintero driving down your throat. Same thing with Gabi Torres. Same thing with Godoy at times. Win your 1v1 battle because we need to have numbers on the other side.
So then do you go with a 4-2-3-1 then on Tuesday night in Trinidad?
I mean, I would go back to that three-man back line and let them get up and down the flanks. I really think that to help protect Bradley is probably your best bet. Mm-hmm. But I'm not sure that Bruce I'm not sure he loves that formation. We saw it late against Honduras, and it worked. I mean, on the road in CONCACAF, when you just need a draw,
right?
And I think they can easily get a win.
A draw in that game for the U.S. most likely qualifies them. Panama would have to beat Costa Rica, who will be on short rest at home, but they need to get probably a +7 goal differential at least, if not more, turned around.
Spoiler alert, Costa Rica's not going to give up 7 goals, guys.
I don't know if you know what Jonathan Borenstein and Josie Altidore did in 2009 and what Panama happened to them, but there's a chance something could happen. You never know. You brought up one name, though, Paul Arriola. Was a surprise in the starting lineup, I think, to a lot of people?
No.
That he started?
We have tweets.
I think we have tweets.
We have a hype train here.
Saying that you were not even going to talk about Christian Pulisic, that you were just going to go straight up to the Paul Arriola hype train. I mean,
the young Ben Olsen out there getting it done.
Ben Olsen with Kobe Jones' speed. I mean, he's got that grit that the '90s team had. Like, they didn't usually beat teams by having more talent. They fought like hell. Arielle's got that same type of fight as you see him get leveled there as he releases the pass. But he's got a ton of skill as well. Obviously, the final product isn't quite as there as it could be, and hopefully as it will be soon. But in my
That's
mind,
real rich of you to say while we watch him get an assist.
Right? Well, I mean, remember he got stuffed on that breakaway.
Yeah.
To me, if I from here on out for the next 10 years, if we get a starting lineup and his name's on the team sheet, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that because he does everything you want from a complimentary player. He fills every gap in terms of making runs, in terms of checking back defensively, and he doesn't stop. He just makes it miserable to play against him.
Let's go to a phone call that we have on Mr. Paul Arriola, 10-year starter.
Hello, this is Sean from Texas. First thing, Paul Arriola, pretty sure he's locked in his starting spot for this team in this cycle.
You'll be happy.
Second, although we did win with a 4-4-2 diamond, do you still prefer that over the 3-5-2 or 5-3-2? But definitely Pulisic definitely playing that number 10 position. What do you guys think?
So what I like about Arriola in the lineup is it basically forces you to play Pulisic inside.
Yep.
Like it's almost a tit-for-tat thing where if you decide that Arriola needs to be in the team, which I think you're right. I think at this point you're not like chiseling it into stone, but it's a good chance. That forces you to move Pulisic inside, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, well, now we have our best team and we have our best player in his best position.
You know, we've talked a lot about that midfield diamond, but this is, I think, Pulisic's third start there, and he's put in work every time he started up there, so I think it's going to stick, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to move him out of that spot. It's just a matter of how you line him up behind him, whether it's the 4-4-2 diamond or the 3-5-2. I do want to see the 3-5-2 on Tuesday. I just have a feeling, given the shape of the player pool right now, and the help that it's... Michael Bradley needs help there. He can't hold down the midfield.
Who's that guy on this roster for Tuesday?
I still think Alejandro Bedoya is playing the best out of any number 8 in the league.
He was
right
the
now.
second midfielder to come off.
But
behind
like
Dax.
maybe it's Dax. Dax is he was great tonight. He's a superb defensive presence. I don't think we're done with Kellen Acosta. He's had a rough couple months and is maybe carrying an injury, but we're definitely going to see more of him. Weston McKennie, get healthy. We'll see you next spring, maybe. I mean, there's a lot of talent in number 8 position. Maybe Colin Bradley's teammate from Toronto FC, Marky
Delgado. We got a Marky Delgado bomb. It's late, folks. It's very late.
Well, since you brought up Weston McKennie, that actually brings me to another text here. Spitz from DC, he says he wants to know. Spitz, my guy. He says, are there any players that could be on the roster for Russia that did not play tonight? Any Pulisic-type players in the pipeline? And this is only slightly related, but Travis in Vermont insists, rightfully so, that we should give a shout out to the U17's performance.
Oh, yeah,
the baby
3-0. Josh Sargent getting the start in the 2018 World Cup in Russia.
Oh my
that
God.
would be 3 World Cups in a calendar year.
How realistic do you think that is, really?
That's not realistic. I guess if he goes and scores a bunch of goals at Bremen, which he won't even play first-team soccer for this year, then he can do it. Chris Durkin and James Sands get the start.
I think the 3 guys to keep an eye on, and none of them have done. All of them are similar age as Pulisic, but none of them have done anything close to what he's done. Are McKennie, who I think will, if he's healthy, he will make the World Cup team. Tyler Adams, who I think has a spot as kind of a shutdown corner. If he can get it through his head that he's probably a wide player and maybe not a central midfielder.
For now or for life?
Certainly for the rest of this cycle.
Okay.
But let's reevaluate in 2019. And then Jonathan Gonzalez at Monterrey. I think U.S. fans have been dying for Ozzy Alonso to play for the U.S. team for
the
last.
That get your hands dirty midfielder.
Gonzalez has that kind of coverage and that ability to dig balls out. There's no frills to his game.
Yeah.
He's 18 years old, starting for the best team in Liga MX. You got to take a look.
And right when you were speaking, actually, you have back up on this Marky Delgado hype train. John from Los Angeles says, Marky Delgado needs a call-up to be that Michael Bradley partner. Great chemistry with them. Really
I don't disagree, and I hope that we see him in January. But there's going to be a lot of guys for that position. There is going to be Christian Roldan. We'll see him back again, and we'll see Acosta, and maybe someone else as well.
But before we get to Trinidad and Tobago, one last thing. Bruce Arena starts his press conference by saying, just mentioning off the top that he inherited an 0-2 record and -5 goal differential. It just so happens that it's now +5.
Yeah.
He just happened to mention it.
Bruce Arena's a very good coach, and the guy before him was a very bad
But
coach.
how tactical was it that the U.S. purposely got blown out by the team they won't be head-to-head with, and then blew out the teams that they will be head-to-head with? Like, that was smart. You can get blown out by Costa Rica, and then as long as you blow out Honduras and Panama, it's all good. Look at Trinidad and Tobago for me, though. when you look at that game, when you look at that matchup, it's never easy for the U.S. going down there. What's the keys? What do you think changes?
It's sometimes easy going down there.
When?
They had a 3-0 on him in the 2010 cycle, right?
Yeah, but that was the semifinal cycle, not the Hex, I don't think.
Was it?
Wasn't that Eddie Johnson's hat trick?
No, it was Josie's hat trick.
Josie's hat
Well,
trick.
by the way, Trinidad and Tobago have very little
No,
to play
Josie's
for.
hat trick was at home.
But they will have scouts to play for, which this team, I think, is going to be paying attention to. They have talent, and they did not make it easy in Colorado. That was a 2-0
Kevin
win.
Molina was awesome
That was
last week,
a 2-0 win that, it required a tactical switch to get Pulisic in a place to change the game and win it with 2 goals. Look, all it takes is a draw, really. You're not going to leave it to a draw. You need to get that win. But luckily, we're not talking about a lineup that has holes in it because of suspension. Look, I think it's fine to go on the road in that 3-5-2 and say, come at us. We're not going to give you room to do anything in the middle of the field. If you can beat us on the flanks, I hope you have a pinpoint cross. Otherwise, we're hitting you at speed on the break, and Pulisic burnt you before, and he'll burn you again.
Yeah, put Cameron into the middle of that back line. Keep Beasler and Omar. Maybe put Ream in for Beasler because he's got a little more range, and I think you'd need that.
And also, Beasler's taken 15
heads.
It
looks like Rocky Balboa.
What happened there exactly? I mean, the guy basically.
Oh, he got
below elbowed him in the face.
CONCACAF.
That was CONCACAF at its.
It was. I mean, Below, I give him credit. He got it in about 6 yellow card worthy fouls before he actually got the yellow.
Annabelle Godoy, 2 studs up tackles, but didn't get anyone. He got pretty lucky. Let's go to the Hot-Take Hotline right now for a question.
This is Tom from Dallas, and I too was shocked that Panama just completely abandoned their shell after their first goal. I mean, I was stunned. As for Josie Altidore, come on, that run. How many times have we seen the ball go through the sticks with nobody's foot on it? That's forward 101. You got to make that run, and he did. And how about Josie with the Panenka?
My bad.
I thought it was outstanding. And my question to you guys is, what do we look like against Trinidad and Tobago? And shout out to David Gaffin, the creamsicle mate.
Thanks. I appreciate that. What does it look like, guys? What do you mentioned bringing Jeff Cameron in.
I'd put him in the middle of that back line.
So who do you drop?
So I would end up dropping him. I would drop Arriola and Nagbe. I would, like I said, I wouldn't be upset if Ariola's name was on the team sheet. But he doesn't have to be an every game starter. But you drop Arriola and Nagbe. You have Villafana left wing back, Yedlin right wing back. Central defense sorts itself out, and then you give Michael Bradley that number 8 partner, whether it's Bedoya, Dax, or Acosta, and then you have 3 forwards up top, or Pulisic and 2 forwards up top.
So 3 forwards up top.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
But who are the 2 forwards up top?
It's Wood and
Clint Dempsey's not going to sneak in this
man.
one. I thought Clint Dempsey was the best U.S. goal scorer and had to start.
He is, and that's the beauty of it.
He's sitting
on the bench, and he's sitting on the bench just waiting for when you need him.
You yelled at me in this office on Sunday, and you were like, "Big game, you have to start Clint Dempsey."
Well, I was wrong.
You heard it right
here.
News have evolved.
They have evolved.
You're learning so much working with us.
At this point, you look at Clint Dempsey, and he's the bullet that's in your holster for when you're desperate, you need it, you have to have this one, all the odds are against you. You got to fire underneath your leg and find a way to hit the bell hanging 400 yards away. He's that guy.
Kansas is weird, man.
I know.
Wait, actually, one more thing.
I Back to the Future 3 on that one.
Very, very early. I just want to say that we had some hot take about Dempsey too. Landon will always be better than Dempsey. His iconic goals against Mexico in 2002 and Algeria in 2010 speak for themselves, and that's Jose from LA. So I think we're going to get a text like this every show.
I love it. I'll have this debate for the rest of time.
I think we were lucky to have Landon and Dempsey both having so much of their primes overlap. I mean, I don't like Texan. It just feels a little disrespectful given what Dempsey has done for club and country for so long.
Boom, there it is. That's the title of the show.
All right? Never forget your branding, kids.
You should have found a way to drop out for the
Great
whistle. That was your...
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
But no, honestly, I understand where our obvious Galaxy fan friend is coming from, but Dempsey's not done writing his story yet. I still believe that Clint Dempsey has at least one more moment in red, white, and blue.
You're saying there's a bell from 400 yards away.
Yes. A mirror with the gun, Annie Oakley style.
But one more thing, because I want to hear it from you. Do you think that moment comes after he starts, or do you think his moment is now as a super sub?
Oh, it's as a super sub when his goal knocks England out of the World Cup next summer.
Yeah, England's going to get into the knockouts.
Here for it.
Oh, God, as if. Let's take a look at the standings. Why are we all laughing and happy? Because it looks like the U.S. might be able to get the business done. Coming into today, Matt Doyle hadn't slept for 2 months. The U.S. national team does their business against Panama. A +5 goal differential. Panama a -2. 1 game left. Panama hosts Costa Rica, who plays against Honduras tomorrow. Trinidad and Tobago and Mexico currently tied 0-0 in San Luis Potosi. And it looks like if the U.S. can get a draw down in Trinidad and Tobago on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on beIN Sports, followed by Club and Country after the whistle here on MLSsoccer.com, they will be going to the World Cup. If they get a win, 100% they're going to the World Cup.
Right now it's 93% according to ESPN's SPI. So like 82% for just third
Shout out
place.
Paul Carr.
Paul Carr out here crunching the numbers for us. By the way, just bookmark his Twitter feed during the show. That's always a good plan. It feels like a weight is lifted off.
Yeah,
everyone's back. And you can see that in the Hot-Take Hotline. You can see that in the fact that we'll all go home and lay our pillows.
We're due for some 12-ounce weights.
Yeah, we are. I think we are.
This is,
thank you, Heineken.
Even after the Gold Cup, a Gold Cup that they won, I don't know that we had this release because there was still the looming World Cup situation.
Man.
And the Gold Cup's the Gold Cup. And it wasn't
was a good
shining
night.
performances.
It was fun. Yeah, but there's nothing like, look, usually World Cup qualifying is terrible. It's just so not fun because of all the stretchers coming out on the field and these games. We saw it last night in CONMEBOL. Where I think 3 of the 5 games ended scoreless, and there ended a great late drama in 2 of them. But for the most part, it was not fun watching those games. And to have a night like this, where it was just from minute 1, that was a lot of fun. It's a release, like you said. It's a weight off of I think everybody involved with the program and certainly us watching it.
We're glad you guys all enjoyed the game. We're glad you enjoyed our show. We'll, of course, be back on Tuesday. We'll be back as well for friendlies and the World Cup coming up.
Oh, hold on. Don't do it. Why did you do that?
The U.S. national team just got jinxed, but it's okay because Doyle knows the lottery numbers for tomorrow because he's got that. We're going to take a look at some of your tweets. Don't forget 401-206-0MLS. You can call it all weekend. Let us know your thoughts. Ask us your questions. We'll have Extra Time Radio coming for you for previews throughout the week. And, of course, we'll be back here on Tuesday night. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a good night.